There was a moment that you changed my perspective on something that I have to recognize my own bias in that, because of course I'm only going to see the bad outcomes of home birth, but there's so many more that go on every single day that I never see. And so I thought about that. I was like, you know what? You're exactly right. There's a spectrum to everything. Things that happen safely and things that happen not safely. And also my view about people having choice remains the same, but my perspective has changed, understanding my bias behind only seeing bad outcomes from home births, or because if somebody's coming to me, something's gone different than they thought. So thank you for that perspective.
Welcome to the Keeping Your Power Real Talk on Resilience podcast. I'm your host, Tracidoula. I'm a family and birth advocate, a mentor, and your personal encourager. I wanted to create the space for individuals, families, and professionals who are done with just surviving and want to rise. Because when everything feels like it's falling apart, the one thing the world can't take from you is your power. And that's where resilience begins. It's not just riding the waves or surviving the storms. It's about how to overcome the challenges. So whether you're in the thick of it or reflecting on where you've been, pull up a chair and let's navigate the hard conversations and the beautiful stories that together we can be honest and use empathy and have a desire to grow, all while, of course, keeping your power in the process. Hi, welcome back to Keeping Your Power Real Talk on Resilience podcast. I'm Traci, your host, and I am sitting down with none other than Jen Hamilton, the Jen Hamilton. Hey.
Hi, how's it going?
Great. I'm excited to just hold space with you today because It's been a while. I don't know how long it's been. We have, and if you don't know Jen, for our listeners, then you have been hiding under a rock. And we're going to change that. It's just weird. And so we're going to change that today.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So I think I ran into Jen. You're a labor and delivery nurse, and I'm a doula in the birth space and do a lot of advocacy work. So I think I ran into you I think it was during the pandemic when everything was shut down and everybody was on their phones. And you struck me as somebody that was I felt like we were just really kindred spirits in a lot of ways, because you talked a lot about advocacy then, but I think a lot of people were talking about just general advocacy back in those days too. And so tell us a little bit about you. I don't want to do that because you know you best, and I know that I'm going to mess that up every single time.
So my name is Jen Hamilton. I am a labor and delivery nurse. I live in North Carolina. I am very much somebody who is trying to exist in the birth world to change it for the better. On TikTok, I started being a labor delivery nurse very shortly before the pandemic. And so I kind of went into not just labor and delivery, but, being on the internet as everybody's doing awesome things in OB and everything's so great. And then I started watching people's stories, about their experiences, being in a hospital and what that's like for them. And I got to see secondhand from others that we're not always doing a good thing. So yeah, I saw people telling their stories, and I started recognizing things even within my own practice that could be seen as harmful and that could be harmful to people. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never want to be that way. Things like, I'm just gonna. That's the way that we're taught, is just these are the things that we have to do. And then, people just kind of go along with it. I was, shocked at hearing some of the things that people go through. And, some of the more egregious things, the not just I'm just gonna, or just doing things to people, and how that can affect people. I started seeing things that I could change from in myself, and then also vicariously kind of trying to help change other people's practice too, and amplifying the voices of people who have important things to say about the things that we do. And I think that
it all starts with ourselves though, right? I think that especially in the birth world, when even doula trainings are like A, B, and C. You do this, you do this, you do this. And, I could never, or we have blinders on sometimes thinking that we are empathy, we have empathy and we have compassion. And I went into this work for service reasons or to support people or to make a difference or to do these things. And we, have to look inward and have self-reflection on and being teachable, really thinking, even motive. It's like, I hear this all the time. Well, I didn't intend to cause hurt, but if you still cause hurt, you still acknowledge it, you still apologize. So I feel like that is like the first battle for a lot of us, is just to remain teachable, because we haven't, and none of us have arrived, right? It's like all a learning kind of thing. But that was kind of me too. Like, I was doing the same thing and helping nurses, get patients to comply. Like, I walked out of some births early on thinking, what just happened? Like, there was no agency and there was no autonomy, and thinking that, no, this person had the right to birth in whatever position. If they're good, baby's good, she could have gotten on her hands and knees. Why? Why was I just standing there saying, no, it's going to be over in a second. Just stay where you are. But there's a lot of grace in that. Like, I think we have to recognize it and then be like, okay, how am I going to change? And then how am I going to be a light for other people? And I think that that's what drew me to you, because I saw that in you.
There was a moment that you changed my perspective on something. I don't know if you remember this, but this was this is whenever I was getting started. And I made a video about, like, it was a home birth video talking about like how I want people to have all the options available to them, even home birth. And I said something like, well, I wouldn't do it, because now listen, I do have to say I wouldn't do it. It's just because I'm a weenie. Okay. I passed out with my ears pierced. Okay. So when I say I wouldn't do home birth, it's not because I believe it to be unsafe. Yeah. It's because I need a fairy drug girl. Okay. I need it. Right. So, but I had made a video like that, and you had said something about how that I have to recognize my own bias in that, because of course I'm only going to see the bad outcomes of home birth, but there's so many more that go on every single day that I never see, And so I thought about that. I was like, you know what? You're exactly right. And that there's a spectrum to everything, right?
It's so nuanced. Mm-hmm.
Right. There's a spectrum to hospital births, and like things that happen safely and things that happen not safely. And, I think that my view about people having choice remains the same, but my perspective has changed, understanding my bias behind, only seeing bad outcomes from home births, or because if somebody's coming in, something's gone different than they thought, Right. So thank you for that perspective.
You're welcome. And because you're, hospitals are the place that gives medical care. And if the transfer is coming in, clearly they need higher help. It's not because it's not because things necessarily failed, because maybe they just need, pain management or, all those kind of things. And I try to, I'm so thankful, because I feel like sometimes, and that's why I feel like we connect really well, because you always have been very, very teachable, what can I learn from this situation to do better? I'm always in that mode. People, challenge me, all the time in learning more, because, I am a childbirth educator. I am a doula. And I think that the challenging part for me is I don't have a license. I have to hold my language to certain standards that I'm not swaying somebody either way to make it sound like, because, our audiences, our fan base grabs onto everything that we say. And, and also I don't want to be, someone I just want to drag people along in the journey that I'm going in. Like, hey, I'm blazing the trail. Come along with me. Let's talk about a lot of perspective. That's what I do in my workshops so much and I see it from not just labor and delivery nurses, but NICU nurses, because they take care of the sick babies.
Yeah.
Of course they don't want their babies to go
Yeah.
over, 40 weeks or,
Mhm. Yeah.
all of these things. So what do you think, perspective wise, in taking care of your own patients? Like, did you see like one big thing that happened that like really switched your gears when the next person that you were taking care of?
I'll say, if I'm going to talk about a perspective shift as far as the way that I care for people, the biggest perspective shift was caring for Black women, because I thought, with my like good intentions and me coming in, that like, that's all everybody needs in order to feel safe. Not true, And so I had a patient one time that really, and I talk about this in my book, that really changed that dynamic for me, from feeling defensive of like, well, what did I do to you? To understanding that I represent an entire system that is not listened to them, And so I can come in with my good intentions and my smiling face and my seemingly comforting words, and someone still not feel safe with me. And that's okay. Like, that I don't need to take that personally. I need to take that as a directive to do everything that I can in my power to hold her in a safe, medically safe space, so that she feels that she is able to make her own decisions, that she gets all the information that she needs to make those decisions, and then to protect her autonomy within that, should anyone come in and try to change that. So I think that the defensiveness is something that it was like a night and day thing whenever because it was a specific patient that I had. She was afraid that I was going to kill her. I mean, she told me that to my face, and I had met her like 3.5 minutes before. And I'm thinking like, what did I do? And then, she sat down with me and told me exactly, she didn't have to do this, but she told me exactly why she was afraid of me. And I was like, dang, I'd be afraid of me too, So that's probably the biggest, I guess, culture change within my own mind, heart, body, soul that took place. And then carrying that through to taking care of people who have had, like white women who've had bad experiences before and don't trust me either. Like, it's not me. I represent an entire system that, and one of my favorite questions to ask people who have had babies before is, tell me about your last birth. Is there anything that happened last time that you're really hoping doesn't happen this time? And then it opens the floodgates of hearing about, well, I was forced onto my back. My nurse didn't listen to me. I felt like I didn't have any choice. And so then it kind of gives me a perspective of saying like, I'm going to make this the complete opposite of that. Like, I want them to feel that this experience is redemptive from that one. So, and there's lots of nurses, me included previously, that could hear those stories and be like, I bet there's more to the story. Or like feeling, the immediate response is feeling defensive whenever someone says something negative about your industry, your career, your work. And so taking that apart is so freeing. Like, it's so freeing to not feel like, I have to feel defensive about stuff. I take what people tell me and it helps impact my care of them for the better, to help protect them from whatever happened last time, or even if they haven't had a baby before. One of my favorite questions to ask is, what are you worried about that could happen today? And then I hear like, oh, well, I've, heard horror stories about a Foley balloon. I don't want that. Or I've heard horror stories about Pitocin, or horror stories about being forced to push in a certain position. And then it helps shape the care that I can give them, so that, because people are afraid of different things. I had somebody that was afraid of cotton balls one time. Like, okay, like I can help you with that. But she was diabetic, and like, she was a type 1. So whenever she was afraid of cotton balls, because in the hospital, when she first got diagnosed, when she was like 7 years old, anytime she saw a cotton ball come out, that meant she was about to get poked. Yeah. So, and I would have come at her with cotton balls, because I have to check her blood sugar, and that's what I use to take blood after, And so knowing that was a simple change that I could make that protected her from feeling that way, even if I didn't intend for her to feel that way, So I think that nurses extrapolating defensiveness from our personality can help create an environment in which we can help our patients to feel safer.
Yeah. Where do you feel like the defensiveness comes from? Like, insecurity, just not feeling good in their own skin?
In my own experience, I will say that in hearing nurses, if we have a bad outcome from a declining something that we deem medically appropriate, right? Which they still have the right to do. I think the defensiveness comes from like, if people have that perspective that they had a bad experience before, or that they're worried that we're going to do something to them, that they will decline something that we think is medically appropriate. And I think it all comes down to compliance.
Yeah.
A little bit,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. We're defensive because we don't want to believe that we could be the cause of a problem in any way,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No one wants to feel that way. No one wants to feel like, well, you're to blame, So I think that it comes from worried about patients not, it sounds so bad, but not doing what we say that they need to do.
Yeah.
But sometimes.
Or questioning why they're making the decisions that they're making is what I see a lot. Is why would anybody not want an IV? Why would anybody not, or why would anybody want a home birth? I mean, why would anybody not want, these things? Because we see so much. So of course you have modern medicine that's going to help the things. But when we talk about, resilience on this podcast so much, and if we want to be a game changer, if we want to be a change maker anywhere, we've got to start with ourselves. Like, we have to figure out why we're feeling the way that we're feeling. Why are we defensive about A, B, and C? Why is it that when I post something, and I'm not right all the time, and sometimes I even say, I'm a childbirth educator and have been forever, but just because I'm saying this, don't listen to me. Go to do the things.
Yeah.
This is TikTok. This is social media.
Right.
Blah. Most of it's entertainment. So, but when I educate something and I am calling out the system, I'm saying, hey, just educate so somebody can make an informed decision. We always talk about informed consent, the education so somebody can confidently say yes or no. And then, if I educate on that part for nurses or even providers, Traci, you're just a doula. Traci, you can't say that. You need, and then they attack what I'm educating on because they don't want to face the, if there's no stopping and quietly saying to oneself, am I educating this to where somebody is comfortable with the information so that they can say yes or no? Yeah. So, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's got to be self-reflection, perspective. How can I make this person's journey safer? Yeah. And I have no decision-making process in their life. Mm-hmm. And I have to believe people, especially Black people. We talked about that. We especially need to not be colorblind on that part and see people the same. I think we need to get out of that too, because that colorblindness attitude, I think, was well-intended for those who were trying to teach that, coming back from everybody is equal, right? But then it made this disastrous journey forward, in that, no, we have to recognize the differences in those people, but just believing people and honoring their own belief system. For sure. And if somebody is, and I understand, I have a very soft place for labor and delivery nurses. Soft. Yeah. Because it's hard. Like, none of it's easy. And I'm,
Definitely.
and some of y'all get into this and they're like, oh, I just cannot wait to be with these patients and take care of them and babies. And then you're like, oh, this is what I signed.
It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot.
The PTSD, I cannot.
For sure.
It's a lot. Yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with it too, because y'all see so much. Like, think of something that you is still embedded in your brain every time you walk in the door, and you're going to make sure that A, B, and C happens before you experience that again. Can you think of something?
I think that the biggest thing right now is with inductions. There are some old school docs who want to come in and just say,
we're in a pandemic, I feel like. Do you feel like we're in a pandemic?
Oh my gosh, yes. But like, let's say you've got a medically indicated induction. This patient has been educated and they, let's say that somebody comes in and they've got cholestasis or something, right? Mm-hmm. They agree to an induction. However, their body's not ready for an induction. So they're one thick in their throat high, right? Cervix is not anywhere near ready.
Right.
Never had a baby before. And their maybe old school doc comes in and says, okay, I'm going to break your water and start PIT. And at that moment, I'm like,
Do you feel like you want to throw up?
Yeah. So a lot of times what I'll do whenever a patient first gets there is to talk about all the paths that we could take in an induction, right? There's a, cervical ripening path, and we can do that a few different ways. There's the contraction path that, we need contractions in order to dilate a cervix, but a cervix that is not very thin has trouble dilating. And I explain that with like an exercise band, right? Like if you have one that's real thin, it stretches real nice and it's really easy. But the reason that you go up in the thickness of that band is because of that resistance, that it's much harder to do. So I think that what I've experienced over my years is having that conversation before anything starts, because there are so many people who do not understand what an induction is,
right?
What like how each thing works, why we would choose each path. I talk about the risks and benefits of like breaking water and what that could mean. And, it doesn't mean that breaking water won't be the choice that you choose at some point. But what are the risks and benefits of breaking it at 1 versus breaking it at 6, and we're trying to, because some people will say like, oh, I would like to avoid Pitocin. Okay. Well, maybe we've got lots of ways that we can do that. If you have not had a C-section before, I have to say that, but there's different paths for people. And I feel like educating on the front end before we even start about the different paths is something that I try to do to prevent like this like crazy cascade of interventions where we are causing what we're trying to avoid. I think, but if I had to boil it down into one word, education and choice are what I really try to protect.
Do you have time to educate a lot though? Because I hear a lot of labor and delivery nurses that are like, well, I just have a standard that I have to go by, and I don't really, I'm just kind of admitting people and doing the things. So is that, talk about choice. So how do you get to, or could everyone make the choice? Every labor and delivery nurse make the choice to stop and say, we have different paths to go down.
Yeah. And this is going to be a shout out for AWON. Okay. So I want anyone who is pregnant, who is listening to this, I want you to find out if your hospital follows AWON staffing standards. Okay. The most patients a labor and delivery nurse should ever have in the whole history of the world is 2. Okay. 2. That's it. If your nurse has more than 2 laboring patients, it's wrong. Okay. So I'm very grateful and gracious to work in a place where we follow AWON safe staffing standards. And so the most patients that I could ever have is 2, and most of the time 1. Like it's a rarity where I have 2, So I want to acknowledge that there are some nurses who are going to be listening to this who say, I could never sit down and talk with my patient like that.
Right.
And I empathize with that because I would hate to work somewhere that I didn't have that time. I'll say most days I do have that time, and it is time that I cherish and I'm so grateful to have. But I think also nurses need to recognize that you can educate about a lot in, 3 minutes, even if you're just going down a list of things, I think that sometimes we make it more complicated in our head, thinking that it's going to take all this time. But I educate as I'm doing other things, right? As I'm priming the IV thing, I'm talking about, oh, you have choice in this too, right? You're a low risk labor. Maybe you already have an IV. If you don't want to be hooked up to this right this second, that is a choice that you can have, risks and benefits of that. But I think taking advantage of the time that we have as we're doing other things, or for instance, like let's say that a baby's heart rate goes down, everybody comes in and we're twisting and we're turning and we're doing all the things, talking to people while this is happening.
Yes, narration is so important.
Yes, because if you don't tell them what's happening, they're going to make that up on their own.
Yes.
And our brain's natural reaction is to do that in a traumatic way. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've heard somebody say, my baby's heart stopped during labor. And it's not so much that, because unless the baby did not come out alive, obviously, but it's that maybe it's not on the monitor right now. We need to readjust. If you don't help your patient understand what's happening to them, they will do it on their own. And it's almost always negative. So talk to your patients while stuff is happening. Explain things to them. We had a situation a few weeks ago where, it was a really chaotic, coming in hot twin preemie birth. And, there's like 40, and also it was right at 7 p.m. Right. So both shifts are there. There's like 47 people in the room. It's loud. It's chaotic. And so what I saw the gap was somebody to talk to her that wasn't yelling,
Right.
I went up and I'm just whispering in her ear everything that's happening and what we needed from her next, right? Like, this is what's coming next. Like, on this next push, I want you to get mad. I want you to get angry. I want you to give me everything you got. We're going to get these babies out. But that, someone to be right there during that situation, especially if it's just one person, that's, I think, ideal, rather than having 5 people say, okay, we're going to do that. I think that would be too chaotic. But if you come into a situation like that, recognizing that gap, if that gap is not being filled, and filling it, because how traumatic some people have things happen to them and there's no one there to tell them what's happening. Sometimes I think, and I also hear stories of this, where they actively ignore the questions coming from the patient because no one wants to be the bearer of bad news or to scare them about anything. But there's language that you can use that, reassures them as something scary is happening. Even if the scariest thing is happening, I'm right here with you. We're going to get through this together, So I think that there's reassuring language that sometimes is not being used that could be in the moment.
Yeah, I see that. I see that too. And I hear when the number one topic, well, maybe not the number one, because we could probably come up with 16, but one of the major topics that it's that internal fetal monitor that I hear so much misinformation, deceptive information. Yeah. And it sounds harsh, but it is. Yeah. If you're not going to call it what it is.
Yep.
And we educate. And I think the frustrating part is I'm educating the same things over and over and over and over and over again. And I hate it because, calling it something rather than what it is and maybe demonstrating what it's going to do for somebody to see it is way better than calling it a sticker or a clip or it's just going to lay next to you. Now, there is a difference between that internal fetal monitor and then the IUCP that just lays in there. But we have to educate because I have so many, and we're ultimately talking about reducing birth trauma.
Yep.
And because I have so many people that debrief with me that were like, I found out this after, and if they had just told me, I would have I would have consented. Of course I want my baby to be okay. Of course I want this to happen. Or same with unconsented water breaking or episiotomy. I see those two.
Yeah.
That can cause so much fear and harm for next time. And even, mom saying, I don't want another baby.
Yeah.
Because of something that happened.
Yep. And I think that, the language that we use is so important because it not only has to be reassuring, but it also has to be truthful. And the FSE or the fetal scalp electrode thing was something that I honestly did not even think about that could cause trauma, is just not calling it by what it is. Cause I mean, and I understand the why behind providers not telling them what, because it sounds bad. It sounds really bad. And when you're in a situation where you're worried about a baby and you're worried that they're just not going to let you do something that you think is important, is coercion. But,
right.
So, I mean, it's called coercion. Yeah. But
write a song.
I understand, but I also, I had to do one just the other day. And before I did it, I said, this is a metal coil that goes underneath your baby's skin on their scalp, and it will give us an accurate fetal heart rate. I said, I know it sounds scary. I said, we don't do this on everybody. I said, I'm worried about your baby, and this is why I would recommend this. Are you okay with that? And she was like, absolutely, do whatever you need to do. But at the same time, she's going to leave with the knowing that I'm telling her what I'm actually doing rather than just like a sticker.
Right.
I love Paw Patrol sticker on your baby. It's so cute. It's perfect. It's awesome.
The biggest way to break trust is to not tell somebody what's happening or be very secretive about it or be deceptive about it. I mean, number one thing. I mean,
for sure.
So, you building that trust in the front side of safety. It's not about just trust. It's not about, hey, what's your birth plan? And yeah, we can do this. And yeah, we're going to work through it together. It's making somebody feel safe. So Definitely. When you say, hey, I'm worried about your baby. Okay. Yep. I trust you. I trust you to do whatever you feel like you need to. Same with providers. I talk about this stuff all the time. Get into your nurse's head, get into your provider's head, and build a team of trust and safety. And all that's going to be is being honest, being real, and practicing the education part of it. Like you just kind of rolled it off your tongue. I don't know if you've practiced that, but being, hey, this is what's happening. This is what I'm seeing. I don't like it. Because, even with episiotomies, if it has to happen and providers are like, look, this is what I'm seeing. This is how I think things are going to go. Hey, baby's been sitting here for a long period of time and you got a really big, thick band angina, all the things. I'm like, just tell them what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Like, what is in there? What is in there?
I always say, if it's in the back of my head, it should be on the front of my lips because I want you to know where I am. Like, when I have a baby that's acting up all day long, I know in the back of my head that I'm being prepared for a running down the hallway C-section. If I don't tell my patient what that could look like, if that did happen and how I would protect her in that moment, I am not being a good friend to her. And that's what I say when I explain it. This is in the back of my mind, and I would not be being a good friend to you if I just kept that a secret. So let's talk about what that would look like, because there's three paths here. One, your baby acts right, and we move forward towards a vaginal delivery. The second, you decide, or the provider decides that, or like lets ultimately it's the patient's decision, but that they think that a calm C-section would be a wise choice, or there is always a chance that this goes differently very quickly, and what that would look like. So one of the promises that I give patients at the very beginning is I promise to never keep secrets from you, right? So if I'm thinking something and I'm not telling you, that's a secret, So I try to not keep secrets from people.
100%. And I do think that, of course, I'm a childbirth educator. Everybody needs childbirth education. I don't care what birth you are planning for. Childbirth education is not just for unmedicated vaginal delivery.
Mm-hmm.
It's for everything. Now you have your branded things. You have your Lamaze, you have your Bradley, you have your hypnobirthing. Those are your branded comfort measure classes.
Mm-hmm.
But your overall childbirth education is going to cover these things that we're talking about. If you don't know what a fetal scalp electrode is, ask your childbirth educator, because we have the things, we have the visuals, we have the factual things. Now we're not going to tell you whether to get it or not. We might tell you when it would be appropriate to get, and what to watch for, those kind of things. But childbirth education is a game changer, like super big game changer. And I hear labor and delivery nurses say too, if I don't have the time, maybe they're not at a hospital that's one-on-one or, one-on-two. Maybe they are kind of, in that, because the hospital that's here that I do the majority of births at is called the Baby Factory. And it is a very busy hospital. So if I go in with someone and they're great, we rarely see a nurse, to be honest. So there's not a lot of time for discussion so we have an induction plan already, when I'm going in, hey, how would you like this to go? Because Bishop score matters, right? Like where their cervix is and where their baby is and all those things. But it's funny because, providers. So how do you, when you're working with providers that are maybe not as good at communicating, and I know that you love the people that you work with and y'all all work really, really well together, but has there been a situation where maybe a provider was just doing their thing and just in their groove and maybe, getting ready to cut an episiotomy without education and you're like, ho, 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 or, or what would you do?
So I'll give a specific example. I had a patient who was being cared for by an old school doc. I kind of gave her the lowdown on choices and stuff before he came in. And I said, he's going to want to check your cervix when he comes in. That's up, you get to make that decision, but we were starting an induction. So, sounds about right. Like that we need to, to check your cervix to see what's going on in there. And he came in, checked her cervix, and then said, hook to me. And I said to my patient, I didn't get the hook. I said, what your doctor is telling me right now is that he thinks it is an appropriate time to break your water. Here are the risks and here are the benefits of that. You would have thought I was the devil incarnate. He was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? But
all labor and delivery nurses listening to this are going,
yeah. Exactly. That's not the right thing to do. You kind of but what I wasn't going to let happen right in front of my face is him to do something that she did not say yes to, because she gets a choice in her care too. And she was a multip, like already 4 centimeters. And like, maybe he thought that we could just do that and then see what happens. And then maybe she goes off to the races. Cool. But you got to talk about it first, like what's your thoughts? What are your reasonings behind it? Because maybe that was something that she absolutely didn't want. Maybe that was something in a previous birth that something went awry with that, Did
you get called into the principal's office for that? Like, did he talk to you after?
He did talk to me after. He said, are you asking me if it's okay with me? Just to be a smart aleck.
Right.
Because he thought what I was doing. I was like, absolutely. Actually, no, I'm asking your patient because it is her body. But yeah, he did not appreciate that. But
because in Doula, when I do that, because I do that.
No, yeah, you get kicked out of the hospital.
No, well, it's more like you're interfering with care.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's the other thing. I think that especially new nurses don't know that we can do that.
Right.
And I want new nurses to hear this and know, I didn't know I could do that. Yes, absolutely. It is your duty, your job.
And doulas do too. That's our job too.
Yeah. It is your job to protect not just their choice, but their autonomy in that choice, and that they have the right to decline stuff, even if you don't agree with that. Because something I get a lot of pushback for online is saying that patients can decide whatever they want, because people don't want me to establish a culture where people just come in and decline everything. I don't think that's what it does. Telling people that they have choice doesn't mean that they're going to come in and just say no to every reasonable thing. It's just letting people know that they have choice, they have options, and not everything is black and white. And the things that I would do for myself doesn't mean that the risks and benefits for you make sense, for you to choose that choice.
Right. Well, when you are educating that way, if you are saying, look, guys, in labor and delivery world, we, our patients have choice, they can decline or, whatever they want to. It's deflection of accountability and responsibility on a labor and delivery nurse to say, oh yeah, I should be saying what the doctor's saying is they think that you should, have your water broken at this point. Do you have any questions? Do you want any information? Do you believe that that's possible? Same for doulas. When I'm training doulas, I'm, saying the same things, but it's holding that person accountable for what I call level 3 advocacy, reactive advocacy. And it puts you in a place of, I'm going to not be liked, or I'm going to be called in the principal's office later, or I could be written up, or I might not have a job. Like, look, all those things are all those feelings are very valid. Okay. Even for doula, we might be threatened to get kicked out, that's a conversation in itself and a social media recording, by the way. Mm-hmm. Because if we are standing up saying, not holding any secrets, not being a silent witness to what could possibly cause birth trauma, I'm going to do that and be faced with maybe the consequences later over my client, your patient, that has put that trust in us.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
So it's not about them saying, oh, well, when somebody grabs onto something in defense and says, oh, but if we say that, we're telling them that they can just decline anything that might be important.
Which they can
do.
Yeah.
Which is what they can do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that it's important for nurses to know that, like, all that we can do and should do is educate, make sure that someone has all the information that they need to make an informed and empowered choice. Let the patient make that choice, document their choice, and support that choice. Like, well, I don't want to say support. You don't even have to really support it, but you can protect it.
Exactly. You do not have to agree with everything somebody does at all whatsoever. And, this goes to the controversial things, the circumcision, the vitamin K, all the things. Those might feel really hard to us.
Yeah.
Hey, I would never, ever, ever not give my child vitamin K. But when I educate it, I am flat.
Yep.
Like, look, here's this and here's this. And this is the evidence that we have. And then all the controversial black box, blah, 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 all the things people read online. And then if somebody decides not to do it or do it against, like, my own belief system, okay. Great.
Yep.
With a smile, by the way.
And then we don't talk about it again. Like, that's the other thing is, like, my personal rule that, I think is a good rule, is that once I've educated, once they've made their choice and I've documented it, I do not bring it up again unless something has changed. Unless there's more information that I need to give you in order to make sure you're informed on your choice still. Right. Okay. So for instance, like, I had a patient one time that declining an IV, right? She came from home, her water had been broken for 3 days. Ooh. And declining an IV, and I supported that choice. I don't want to say support. I protected that choice, It's not even that I have to agree with it, right? I protected that choice. And then whenever I noticed her heart rate going 110, 120, her baby's going 180, I needed to provide her with more information to make sure that, and the medical recommendation, which would be, hey, we might need some IV hydration. And I am concerned you might be getting some choreo and what the treatment for that would be. She declined again, and I didn't bring it up again until something else changed. Like, I feel like that is what is the difference between like coercion and information, right? Coercion is not giving it up. Coercion is like, we got to do this.
And we just want your baby to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But she doesn't.
Yeah. I think that in order to protect your patient's choice, no matter what it is protecting that choice and only bringing it up again when you have new information. When I was growing up, there was one day that one of my friends had invited me for a sleepover, and I did not clean my room. And so when I asked my dad, he was like, absolutely not. You did not clean your room. And then my friend was like, I'm going to go talk to him. I was like, oh my God, please do not go talk to my dad. Like, because I knew that was going to get me in trouble, because my parents were very much like, you ask me one time, I give you my answer, and that's it, you know? And so, but my friend went up to go tell him, it's my birthday, and I was allowed to invite one friend, and Jennifer is the one friend I wanted to invite. And I was like bracing for my dad to get mad. And then he was like, oh, okay, absolutely. And I was like, wait, what? And on the way home, my dad was like, I was presented with new information that would alter my decision. And so that's when your decision changes. So I think it's the same kind of thing. Like, you can be resolute in a decision, and then more information come in that may alter that decision. It may not, you know, but my job as your nurse is to give you that information, and then you still get to make that decision. And then I will protect that choice, even if it's something that I wouldn't do.
Right. Upholding agency and autonomy. It's beautiful, Jen. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yes. And I feel like it's harder for others to get their labor and delivery nurses or doulas because of like the oppression of training, or maybe, you know, of course, it's mostly a top-down system. Us doulas are just kind of like over here hoping that somebody, you know, recognizes our role, first of all.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's because some labor and delivery nurses are trained out of compliance, you know, just get your patients to comply, check off the boxes, standards of practice, not individualized care. And what you're doing is you're just, yes, you have a standard and you know it, but you are absolutely taking that person and where they are and guiding them to wherever the decision is, and not making them think that they have to only do these standards of practice. That is like protocol, policy, those kind of things. But that goes back to self-awareness and self-acceptance is where the stuff comes from. Like, can I, or do I have my own voice? And am I able to speak up for myself? Because if I can't, and I've never spoke up for myself, and I'm a recovering people pleaser or a people pleaser, or where, you know, I hate confrontation, those kind of things, they're not going to be able to speak up for other people. Yeah. And confrontation doesn't have to be conflict. It just doesn't.
Right.
But so I had a question, and you laughed because you asked me about it. And this is I just feel like this is so Jen Hamilton question, because of, you know, of your humor. But I said, what do you wish every provider remembered about the power they hold in the bathroom instead of the birth room?
Yeah. And I was very confused a little bit. I even brought it up to my husband. I was like, let me think about what this could mean. I was like, is she meaning like the dilation station is the toilet? And I'm sure there's lots of power in the bathroom, you know, depending on the day.
There can be. Yeah, exactly. So that brings me to, I mean, that's a valid question, but that does bring me to, I meant the birth room, but it does bring me to the question of just out of the box, you know, labors and, you know, people wanting to labor on the toilet and those kind of things. Do you freak out by that kind of stuff?
No, I love it so much.
Yeah.
So I always tell people motion is lotion in labor. I talk about the beauty of the toilet because our bodies are used to relaxing on that throne, you know. We had a toilet baby just the other day. So I mean, it doesn't scare me at all. In fact, I think that more people should be encouraged. And I know that there are certain hospitals that just like are like, no, you got to stay in the bed. Like, I wish that was different.
Not if you don't want to.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So I love the bathroom. I love the toilet. I love the shower. We've had shower babies. I think that I had a VBAC. It was almost a shower baby, but I had like a VBAC patient that she was getting to the moment where, that moment in transition where they panic, right? They're overwhelmed by the options that there are to do next. Like they don't even know, their brain shuts off and it's just like fight or flight. Right. Mm-hmm. And I told her, I said, if you get to this moment, one thing that I can do for you, because her goal was to go unmedicated. I said, if you get to that moment of panic, you tell me and I will offer you 2 choices, not 11, 2. And we can try one or the other so that you feel still in control, and we can try it. If you don't like it, we can do something else, but I will help you ride this till the wheels fall off, right? Like I'm going down this as long as you want to go down this. And so, one of the choices that I offered to her was, why don't we get in the shower? Like, why don't we, try that? I said, I'm not going to stand here and like make you feel watched. I'm going to be right out here if you need me, but I want you to feel comfortable. Cause who likes somebody watching them in the shower? Right. So I said, I tell people I am here as much or as little as you need me to be. And so she got in the shower and you know what she did? Relaxed. And guess what? She called me and she said, it's coming. And we, her midwife came in and she's like, I'll be wherever you want to be. But we were, at the moment where she was like, it's coming, we were like standing over the floor. And so I just had my hands like this, like, here it comes. But, yeah, shower is a beautiful place. The toilet's a beautiful place. I think that I've even had people put their galaxy light in the shower and turn, not in the shower, but like in the bathroom and turn all the lights off and like make the vibes cool in the bathroom. I think that is such a cool thing to do.
Yes. Yes. So I have a funny question. So if we were on a birth team together and say like there's a provider, this mom wanted nothing but a birth stool birth, and the provider that was on call, you come in and you're like, Traci, this provider's never, ever, ever going to want to do this birth stool birth, but we've got this. What would a strategy be? Could we do for this provider to not necessarily, we don't need him to come to our side. We don't have to for him to agree. He doesn't have to approve it. But what could we do to maybe distract him from this birthing stool birth?
Yeah. You know what I love to do is empower them. I say, you are such a good doctor and you can do it. I believe in you. You are adaptable, you are flexible, and you are like, I hype them up. I love to do that with new doctors too. Like, because they are in their training and they're learning how things are supposed to be. So I had one come in and we were hands and knees, maybe. We were hands and knees or like squat bar. We were doing something that was not straight lithotomy, right? And so they're like, okay, break the bed down. And I was like, you know what? We are doing so good right here. And let's keep that going because she's feeling really great in this position. And then whenever they started giving me pushback, I was like, you can do it. I believe in you. I believe in you. Right. I'm right here with you. We're going to do it together. And they did. And then you know what I do? What I do after? Hype them up. Look at that was awesome. Everything went awesome. Yeah. Look at how flexible and adaptable you were. You made that patient feel so safe and be able to, I feel like there's power in the hype rather than sometimes whenever you're like, actually, this is what we're going to do. They can get defensive and be, For sure. So I feel like when we build people up and we encourage them, it can sometimes, not everybody will be receptive to it, but right. And then, if you do have somebody who's like, I'm not going to whatever. First of all, people can do whatever they want. But I've also had patients that are like flexible in doing something else that's not lithotomy, right? Like, hey, let's say that we're squatting over the floor, right? And maybe the provider's worried that the baby's going to drop on the floor or something. Okay, well, first of all, I can put pillows underneath you. Right. Or, if you feel comfortable or you feel like you can, let's squat in the bed. Let's there's flexibility in all of it on both sides. So I think that hyping people up and allowing compromise in a way that doesn't compromise a patient's values.
Yes. Yes. I was thinking more like when you were talking all that, I was like, why don't we just put the provider behind the curtain so he doesn't have to see? He can just stick his arms around so that he can.
There you go. Just scoop. Exactly. Yeah.
Or if a provider is reaching back for scissors and there hasn't been a conversation, then you can just grab the scissors and throw them to me, and I'll
scoot the table back a little bit.
If we ever did a birth together, providers would be like, oh no, what have I gotten myself into? Oh no.
But speaking of that, like I love to pregame with my patients about their provider's preferences. Okay. So I had a girl one time who was laboring on her own. She came in, she went from 2 to 5 or something in a relatively short amount of time. I said, now let's talk about what choices you have going forward and what things your provider may offer to you. I always, I try to make it sound like they're offering it rather than, they're going to make you do this.
Right.
I knew that no matter what was going on with this spontaneous labor, that this provider would want this person on PIT. It's just the way that they are.
Yeah.
Just the way they are. And it aggravates me personally, but, letting that patient know that is something that their provider will recommend and the choices that they have in that. So I said, here's what's going to happen. Your provider is going to come in and she's going to say, I'm going to check your cervix now. Now, what she means by that is, may I? Right. There's no, you have a choice. And I said, she's going to come out of your cervix and she's going to tell me to start PIT. I'm just telling you that's how that's going to go. And I said, this is what Pitocin is. This is why we would use it. Your cervix is changing on its own. And I said, if you want that, then let's do it. I will absolutely do that for you. If you do not want that, because she had already said that she didn't, I said, all you have to do is say, no, thank you. And then I said, what she will say to that is, we're at risk for infection without it because her water was broken. Her water broke like an hour before. Okay. You're not at risk for infection, right? You're at risk for infection now. We really need to give the Pitocin because of the infection risk. And I say, what you can say back to that, if you don't want that, is thank you for letting me know. I will let you know if I change my mind. That's all you have to say. That provider was very confused, but it played out, and I'm telling you verbatim exactly how I said it was going to.
Yeah.
And when the doctor walked out, the patient's face was like,
yep.
How did you know? How did you know? But when people are prepared and able to think about what they would like ahead of time, it helps them to advocate for themselves in the moment, instead of being like, oh, I didn't know that she was going to make me do this or want me to do this, and I wasn't prepared for this choice. Because sometimes people get in the situation where they're not prepared to give an answer either way, and everybody's a people pleaser, and they're like, okay.
If you think I could.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I like to pregame with people about their provider's preferences, because isn't it crazy how you could have one patient be cared for 4 different ways by 4 different providers, Yep. And have 4 different outcomes.
Yeah. And people don't realize that at all.
Yeah.
That's very, very
so much of OB is in provider preference.
Absolutely. So if somebody had a doula coming in, do you work with a lot of doulas?
I love them. Yes. We have a lot of super awesome doulas.
Great. Yeah. So when a doula comes in and you don't know, you don't know the patient at all, what are the top 3 things that you want to know about that patient that maybe the doula knows because we spend so much time with them? What are the things that you would love? Because I do what's called first 5 minutes with my clients. I'm like, okay, what are the top things that your labor and delivery, especially if they're in active labor and we're just coming in hot, right?
Yes.
And baby might just be right there. What are some things that would make your job 10 times easier if there was just a 3 checklist?
Yeah. So one is, who is everybody? What's the relationship, right? I need to know the vibe in the room, because I could be wrong about the vibe or who people are, right? So knowing who's important to her, and Next is, how can I protect what's happening? Right. So birth plan stuff. And of course, birth plans include a whole lot of things, but knowing in just a quick amount of time, like, what if this thing happened would be devastating to her, right? Sometimes it's C-section. Sometimes it's Pitocin. Sometimes it's, I don't know.
Okay. So like the deal breakers, the
absolute, please do not let this happen to me kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I will read the rest of it. I promise. But knowing it, especially if they're coming in hot, right? Mm-hmm. Like, what are those things that are the most important? All of it's important, but like everyone has things that are like the absolute devastating things that if that happened, it would be bad. And then let's see, a third one. How do we get here today? Like, tell me what's happened. Like, what have we already done? What has already happened? So that I know where we are in the process. Because sometimes it's like, oh, her water broke an hour ago and now we're 9. Or sometimes it's like, we've been at this at home for 3 days, So knowing where we are in the process helps.
Yeah. Awesome. So what about like GBS positive or negative?
Yes. All of that stuff too. The way that every place is different. Sometimes it's like LDRP. Sometimes, our triage is downstairs. And then by the time they get to us, I typically know all that information from the nurse before, but it is important because sometimes it could be different information than is in the computer. So that's also important, especially if you have a place where it's like more of a all-in-one, where triage is all with that.
So tell me a little bit about your book, or a lot about your book.
Yeah. Okay. So
excited. I'm
so excited too. I'm nervous because like in the very first part of my book, I have like a disclaimer, and the disclaimer is there's going to be people in the hospital that are mad at me for saying what I have to say. Okay. And there's going to be people, and I really direct it towards like the more extreme fringe, like free birth is the only way type people, mm-hmm. who are going to be very angry at me for acknowledging the importance sometimes of medical interventions, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be for everybody. But my goal in this is to create this cocoon of safety for patients where they feel cared for, respected, heard, understood, even if things go different than they thought, and being able to protect what's important to them. Because so often I hear about birth trauma, and I know that you know this because rarely does it have to do with, I had a cord prolapse. I had a shoulder dystocia. We were skirting down the hallway on 2 wheels because I had an emergency C-section. My nurse thought I wasn't in labor, or like they didn't let me get the epidural because they didn't believe me, or like, I was
pushing and she told me to stop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So much of it has to do with the outside factors, mm-hmm. and not so much on the logistics of what happened. So I want to protect people's emotional state, because people cannot make decisions where they feel medically safe if they're not first emotionally safe.
Right.
And I know that this is true also about just labor progression in general. If you feel watched like you're in a zoo, if you feel cold, uncomfortable, and I say uncomfortable, like of course labor is uncomfortable, but like if there are other things that are causing you to feel uncomfortable, your mother-in-law is staring at your butthole right now.
Yeah.
That can make you feel uncomfortable. So like it's called Birth Vibes, and it's a tool for patients to be able to communicate with their team what is most important to them, not only birth plan wise, but what makes them who they are as a person. For instance, like, some people love it. Like if you touch their hair, right? They just love their hair being played with. To me, it's like nails on a chalkboard. But in any situation, I can't tell people that because I'm a people pleaser and I want them to like not feel that I'm judging them or whatever, So I won't stick up for myself in that moment. So this is a way to like preemptively tell your team what's important, and also how to advocate for yourself if things are going differently in that category. So like, how do you fire a nurse? How do you get a second opinion? If you feel like you're not being listened to, how do you navigate that? Tools for like partners and things to be able to advocate for their person. I really hope it helps shine a light not just on the things that are going wrong in OB, but also giving patients the power back, the autonomy back in order to make decisions that they feel good about.
You just make my heart sing, because that's just my whole thing. Yeah, I just love, I mean, it's not about us. It's about, it's not even about an unmedicated vaginal birth. It's not about, education to not get an epidural. I feel like birth culture is so in that. It's about coming out the other side psychologically whole.
Yep.
And having the tools to be able to do so.
Yep.
And
knowing that you made decisions that were informed and empowered. Because I feel like there's part of not having trauma is leaving without regrets. Like, hey, I did the best I could with the information that I had. So, and because there's a lot of like guilt and anxiety that comes out of making decisions in birth, maybe that you didn't feel were right for you, that you felt coerced into, or that, I feel very strongly that there's so much about postpartum depression and anxiety that can be dependent on what happened in your birth experience.
100%, 1000%. And I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it. Well, I am definitely going to dive into this book when it is available. And I'm so excited about my circle of influence of people that are going to be benefiting to this, because this is all about keeping your power in the process. When I trademarked, keeping your power, that the navigation of what you're talking about is exactly what I want for families. And I feel like I'm so excited about passing this on, like you are passing it on, because we all have like our own circles of influence that we touch. It's like, it's not just Jen's job to write this book, right? It's like, it's our job to take the tools from others, to learn from them, and to spread this and let, information ripple so that parents can keep their power in the process the whole way through and come out psychologically whole. Birth trauma needs to just go away all the way around. And like you said,
there's so much of it is preventable.
It is. And it's not just, it's not the medical things that we're not talking about the medical things. We're talking about, you can still have a retained placenta, a prolapse cord, a very emergent cesarean. You can have all kind of things happen to you. But if you are in the middle of the decision-making process, able to understand, to say yes or no, you are going to come out the other side okay. Now, you're going to have to deal with the other stuff, but you're absolutely not going to be in this what just happened phase.
Exactly. And you know what? On the flippity flop of that, like you could have a birth that goes exactly how you thought you wanted it to go, checks off every box on a birth plan, and leave that experience feeling traumatized because of the way that you were communicated with, or the support person you had, or, like there's so many other things that can cause something that on paper looks perfect to be something that you regret, or that you feel have a negative emotion about, and nobody wants to leave their birth feeling negative about it. No. So, and I honestly hope that providers read it also and recognize that we can break away from this defensiveness. We can break away from feeling the need to control every policy decision, whatever that happens in labor, and being able to educate our patients, inform them, and empower them to make decisions, so that it's more of like shared decision making, collaborative together. And it doesn't have to, because I think what a lot of providers are afraid of is like this power struggle. It's not that at all. It's your patient is the person who this is happening to. Like, they need to be not just involved in that decision, but like the one who is the keeper of the, so it's like, we're there to help people through, but we're not there to do anything to anyone. only for them. So,
yeah. But that goes back to my funny question that should be read the right way. What do you wish every provider remembered about the power they hold in the birth room? I think that's it. The power that they hold is you can keep the patient in the center of the decision-making process. And yes, it's shared decision-making, but it's actually just parent or family centered instead of the top-down system. When I'm in my workshop with my doulas, we have the family dynamic. We have the birthing person with the partner. The doula, if they have one, is over here, and then everybody else is circled around them, not the top down. And I feel like providers and some labor and delivery nurses need to gather around more. And the focus needs to be on that birthing person. I cannot wait. I am so proud of you because I have seen you from the very first time that we did a live together, I think on TikTok. We need to do that again and when you were just starting to today. And I don't know if that means anything to you, but I am.
It means so much to me.
I am so super proud of you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with me again today. And we'll talk at you later. We're looking out for the book, pre-ordering it, and it's going to be it's actually released when?
May 5th. Cinco de Mayo. Yeah. It's coming.
Okay. I trust you.
Well, thank you so much. What an honor it was to have this conversation. Thank you.
Oh, love you, Jen. We'll talk to you soon.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Keeping Your Power podcast. I hope this episode reminded you that your feelings are heard and your voice matters. If it spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to know that they are seen. You can connect with me at tracidoula.com or find me on social media at Tracidoula. On the next episode, I sit down with an adoptive father who is also my fiancé, Kevin. Kevin adopted 2 children internationally from Thailand and China. He shares his personal story and perspective on adoption and what he's learned along the way. I'm looking so forward to you joining us for this episode. Until next time, keep your power in the process.